We've been talking about, well, the impact on families when one of your loved ones is killed in a violent incident, the reasons, some of the sometimes very petty reasons behind such a killing. Relatives asking for answers and asking what the authorities can do to help them. This morning, we can bring you the first very moving interviews with two families whose son and cousin were killed on the streets of London this year. 18-year-old Dami Odeyingbo wanted to go to university to teach cybersecurity. He left school with good grades and was loved by his three younger brothers. Days before his 19th birthday, he was killed. So too was 36-year-old Julian Joseph, who, according to his family, kept himself to himself and was never associated with gangs or violence. He died 2 weeks ago. What is it like then for the loved ones left behind? Our reporter Noel Phillips has spent time with both Dami and Julian's family and has been hearing the devastating impact their deaths has had on their lives. Our top story today, yet another night of violence in London.
4 fatal stabbings of young men right across London in the space of just 15 hours.
To lose a brother, sister, uncle, cousin or son is painful enough.
I just put my hand on his heart and just each heartbeat just grew fainter and fainter and fainter.
When it's a result of violence, the ordeal for some can be unbearable.
There were 7 stabbings yesterday, with a number of teenagers wounded.
There's been 51 murders in the capital since the beginning of the year.
I couldn't cry, I couldn't scream, you know. I was just staring. I was just it just didn't seem real, you know. I just couldn't believe that something like that could happen.
This family are living through an unimaginable nightmare. Their 18-year-old son, Dami Odeyingbo, was reportedly stabbed on the 9th of January in Bromley, southeast London.
I couldn't believe it. All I was just doing throughout the night, no sleeping, was just praying, God help me, God help me, God help me. Bring him back. I don't know what he's doing, what they've done to him, but just bring him back.
They watched Dami unconscious in a hospital covered in blood. They were desperate for him to survive, but he died the following day.
I got to the hospital. My boy was already dead, so I didn't get to speak to him. That broke me. Saw my son on the bed, dead. It broke me totally. All I was just doing was crying all that. We were just all crying.
He was the 5th person to be killed in the capital. Dami was like any other teenager.
Dami, who do you really think should have won an England-Wales game?
Well, personally, I think...
Loved playing sports, especially rugby.
I want people to remember him as the kind, fun, loving, caring young man.
Thank you, Dami.
He had dreams of going to university and was a role model to his younger brothers, Ayo, Ife and Lami.
I have lots of good memories about my brother.
I want people to remember his friendship and how he made people smile when they were sad.
It makes me feel proud that he did something good and he inspired a lot of people to do well.
Dami was killed just 6 days before his 19th birthday. This family photo was taken on Christmas Day last year. They never thought it would be their last. He died just 16 days later.
We were looking forward to it just a week before, and it's gone. We thought we're going to have a best 2018, a very good year, happy year. That was what we were talking about even on Sunday, and it happened. It died on Wednesday. So it should have been like the happiest year ever. Never knew I was going to be crying about my son. Not at all. No, not at all.
I think the hardest thing for me was the fact that, you know, I was helpless. I couldn't do anything to help him. You know, I wish I could do something, but there was just nothing I could do. I was just know.
And he couldn't even hear us because he couldn't speak to him. For him to hear him, he doesn't even know. Maybe his dad was there because he was already in induced coma. You know, it's sad because we didn't even get to speak to him at all. He didn't see us. We didn't get to speak to him. We didn't get to tell him anything. That's really, really sad.
It's the most, it's the worst thing, the worst feeling, and I mean the worst thing that could ever happen, you know, to anyone.
Dami's family says he had never been in trouble with the police. But now makeshift shrines are becoming a familiar sight on London streets. They are a testament to the violence many people are struggling to understand.
It's just a shock. A shock. The way that he went, like, just so violently, it's hard for us to comprehend that type of violence on a person, you know, and yeah, it's we're never gonna get over it, but in time I suppose it will get easier to deal with. But we're gonna miss him. Jew, call him Jew.
Michelle knows the pain of also losing a loved one. Her cousin, Julian Joseph, was the 31st person to be killed this year. On March 13th, he was allegedly attacked on a bus in southeast London. He suffered serious injuries and spent 11 days in intensive care.
I was on my knees, praying. I was on my knees. The hardest thing I'd ever have to watch. And they took the tubes out. And you could tell that he wasn't there anymore. And then his hand started to move. And his face started to contort a little bit. I was holding one hand, my cousin was holding the other hand. And I was just praying. I was like, Drew, it's fine, you can go. Be happy, you know? And it was so hard. And then they took the tubes out and he stopped breathing. It stopped struggling. And I just put my hand on his heart and just each heartbeat just grew fainter and fainter and fainter. And I just put my head on him, put my head on his chest, and I was just holding him and just told him it was okay.
This is Julian with his dad Morris in 1983. The 21-year-old didn't live to see his son grow up.
His dad was stabbed to death back in the 80s.
Yeah.
It feels like a familiar
It does.
nightmare reoccurring.
It's just total disbelief. You know, they both died at a very young age. You know, they had their whole lives ahead of them. Julian's dad had just become a father for the first time. And he was just cruelly taken away from his son.
Not only are you grieving, but you're struggling to find enough money for Julian's funeral.
Because they're not cheap, you know? And you don't expect to be burying someone so young. We're all doing what we can. So the generosity of the public, family and friends, and we're so grateful for the support. We really are. We're really grateful for the support. And it's really tough, really.
Michelle struggles to finish her sentence. No one feeling her pain could. Her cousin, she says, was never involved in gangs or violence.
Dami is a beautiful soul, an adorable, shining example, and a source of inspiration to many people. in and out.
Kemi tells me it's a struggle to describe her feelings. Instead, she now writes them down.
Who was taken away from us so soon? Dami will be terribly missed by many.
The police's investigation into Dami's death continues, but in the meantime, his family is determined to send a message to other parents.
I just want parents to speak to the kids, to stay away from trouble.
When something like this happens, you know, it doesn't just affect one person, you know, it has a wider ripple effect, you know, it affects the parents, the siblings, the extended family, the friends, the society. We don't want any parent to go through the pain we are going through now.